June 2nd, 2020 Pathways Through Aging meeting. Will be given our panel presentation, Brandi Gagnon, Care Coordinator for Easter Seals and Homemakers Health, talking about Title 20 and 3B.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you and kind of go along. If you guys have any questions, you can interrupt me or save them till the end, whichever you prefer. And Tracy is also on this and can also chime in and answer questions as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Title 20 and 3B for both Rockingham and Stratford County, because Pathways does reach the Seacoast. And for Seacoast, to me, as I define it, as anywhere from going as far down as Seabrook, New Hampshire, up to Farmington, New Hampshire. And those are really the two counties mixed together. So I'm just going to talk broadly about Title 20 and 3B for both areas. And I do have contact information for Rockingham County as well as for Stratford County, which is me. But I do have some information for people out there who need to make referrals within Rockingham County. So I'm trying to move my, so just if no one has heard of Title 20 before, where it comes from is a social services block grant funded under the Social Security Act, and provides home and community-based services targeting elderly population and younger adults between ages 18 and 60 who have a chronic illness or disability. We have had clients in our catchment area as young as 18, 19. We have clients on our Title 20 program, I think as old as 100 or 101. So it is a broad range of age, but it really is just a program to help promote independence and prevent people from either going into a nursing home or even a group home if they're younger. Some of the services that are included under Title 20 as a whole: adult medical day services. So the day out program here in Rochester, we have one in Manchester, and there are some few out throughout the state that are funded under Title 20. Adult in-home care, essential services, chore, emergency support, respite. I'm not exactly sure, can't speak too much on that. Home delivered meals, I think, your Meals on Wheels, things like that, is funded under Title 20. And our homemaker services are funded under Title 20. And the website that I have here, and I'll share this PowerPoint on our Google Drive, and this website here gives it really where I got all this information from and a little bit more details as well. So I'm going to specifically, I can answer some questions about the day out program later, but because our program isn't really running right now, and I'm not really the expert on that program, I'm not going to go into as much detail as I am about the in-home care piece. But if you have additional questions, we do have a contact here you can talk to, and Tracy and I can field any questions about the in-home care, the day out program and adult day program. So just essentially, what is a homemaker service? The homemaker will provide assistance as needed to an individual needing to maintain independence in their home. So anything like vacuuming, linen changing, meal preparation, laundry, sweeping, mopping, companionship. What I just really say is anything to stay independent at home. We get errands, do errands for people, grocery shop, do medication pickups, and then we also just support the consumer to keep them towards self-reliance. So we want people to stay independent at home. We don't want them to have to go into managed care. We want them to stay where they are and actually learn some skills from our homemakers too, to stay there and stay independent. I mean, a lot of people end up staying on our program for years. A lot of people might use it as a stopgap. They might have gone into the hospital, taken a fall, and then come home and really needed help, but with the help of a homemaker consistently going in their home, they might end up phasing out of the program. But a lot of times they end up staying on for quite some time, and then they'll end up moving on to CFI, or they'll move into another program that's most appropriate for them. But really, this program, Title 20 Homemaker Services, is really just to keep people as long as they wish and as long as they can afford it, which I'll talk about affording it, and it really is an affordable program. So as long as they can afford it and would like the program, we want to keep people using it. We also understand and respect the confidentiality of the consumer and their family. So we go into great detail with some of these people's lives, their backgrounds, and so we end up sometimes being really almost part of their family as a homemaker, because we might be in there for so long, and we might be teaching so many skills that the family members and the consumer themselves really respect and really consider their homemaker kind of part of family sometimes. So,
hey, Brandi, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is anybody else hearing a little interference?
Yes, and I've tried
Hear
to
it, like-
mute.
I'm
I've tried to
wondering-
mute everyone, but
I'm wondering, Brandi, by any chance, is your phone near your computer? Sometimes that,
it is, I can move it.
I'm curious, I don't know.
Okay, I just moved it. Does that make any difference?
Nope.
No.
I don't know.
Is it yours?
Is it mine? Might be mine. My phone or near my computer.
No, I can hear it also.
Okay.
Okay, we've removed the phones from the office. How does it sound now?
I think it definitely is coming from your area, Brandi, but
Oh, it stopped.
Maybe
Oh,
we're
no.
removing of the phones? Does it sound okay now?
It's the same, but continue on. I don't know. Actually, that might be better.
Okay.
I don't know.
Interrupt me.
Who knows?
Interrupt me again if you need to.
Okay.
So going into the eligibility piece for Title 20, it's really just, Title 20 is an income-based program. So an individual can't make more than $1,277 a month, and that's individual. So if there's a husband and wife, and the wife might be making over and the husband makes less, or vice versa, we'll still go in and service the individual who qualifies. And maybe we find a way to qualify the other individual if they're slightly over income and there's still a need, and the homemaker can go in and do services for each individual in the home. We do ask that the financial contribution is $1 per hour if you fall under that category of eligibility. So if the $1 per hour is too much, we will go over a financial form, and they could potentially receive the services at no cost. We would like to see the client pay a little bit, and the $1 per hour we consider reasonable for the services we're providing. And if a person comes in under state protection, which I'll go into detail in just a moment on, there is no fee at all. We cannot, under any circumstances, charge anything to someone who comes in as a referral under the state protection. And I'll go into detail, but we do have a contract with the Bureau of Elderly and Adult Services to service anyone coming in as an open protection case and referral. So we work very closely with the adult protective service workers in this county, and in Rockingham County, they work very closely with those referrals. And those referrals for someone needing the in-home care and support go right to the top. So we often have a backlog because APS may have a backlog of phone calls. Recently with the COVID-19, you guys may have heard referrals have kind of dwindled because there hasn't been anyone going in homes as much. So I do imagine that once the APS workers start going back in, and once more people are going back in the homes, social workers and other entities are going back in homes, we will see that there'll be an influx of open protection referrals. But again, I'm going to go into that detail a little bit further. Under the program 3B, there are no income guidelines, and you just have to be 60 years old or older, explain your hardship, and basically we will not charge you any fee for services. So some people who come in are under Title 3B. They might have sufficient income, but they might just have a lot of things going on that they need to be spending their money on other things, and they really do need the help in the home. So we will put them under the Title 3B program. They'll have no fee and they'll still get services. So basically you'll ask, I'm referring my client now, what happens? So if you refer over to any one of us, an intake and assessment is done by the care coordinator, myself, and we go out and just do a run through of the person's home and get information for us to develop a care plan. And so we'll make sure that the home is safe. We'll make sure we find out exactly what they need, and we'll make sure that they are getting a care plan very specific to either housekeeping, errand running, or meal preparation, and we'll find out exactly the best times of day for them and try to accommodate what exactly their needs are. When we go back to our office, we get all of their information into our system that makes up a care plan, and then we match a staff person with them, a homemaker, to begin services as soon as possible. We require 2 hours a week, and we would like to be able to do some of these Title 20 people in 3B 2 to 4 hours a week. So we're able to get through some of the funding we have. And also 2 hours a week doesn't do justice sometimes going into someone's home. Really, if you're doing a load of laundry and doing some errands, 2 hours can go by in a blink of an eye and you're not doing as much as you really could. So we recommend that they go up to 4 hours a week to really get the best coverage and best support. However, with our staffing crisis, we really oftentimes can only do 2 hours a week, depending on how many homemakers we have available. And for Title 20 and for 3B, we do go out yearly, although we are most of the time on the phone with many of our clients regularly. We go out and see their homes every year, and we're required by the state to have updated signatures and redetermination applications. So at the very minimum, it's a year, but at the very maximum, it's a year, but I would say I'm on the phone with many of our clients and their homemakers weekly with a lot of cases. So this is just useful information for you to have when you make a referral, whether it's to our area or someone in Rockingham County, the town they live in, because that's essential to know what exactly which agency is going to take them on, and what's their income, their age, and what do they really need help with. You as the advocate for them know, well, their house is really a disaster, or wow, they have no other supports, they really need food, they need someone to go to the food pantry for them, or they just need someone to come in at 12, make sure they eat that afternoon meal, prepare it for them, have some companionship, say some hellos. We have a lot of people who really need our check-in because they have no one else, and our homemaker is the person that is checking in on them once a week. So just basically having this information when you make a referral into us helps us kind of gauge their need level and helps us gauge what we're looking at in terms of their funding source and who we have for staff available as well. So with the Title 20 program, we have like I said, contract with the Adult Protective Service Department at Bureau of Elderly and Adult Services. So they'll be the ones making a lot of referrals over to us. And I took this off the website as well, but it's basically how someone does get onto the Protective Service Program. So the APS department was in receipt of a call and investigated alleged abuse, physical abuse, emotional neglect, exploitation, self-neglect, or law enforcement involvement. The APS worker determines the validity of the report and if they would need to be open under protective services. When they are accepted and determined to have the need is when we'll get the referral. Oftentimes I'll go out and do an intake with the protective service worker just because they have a familiarity with them, the person that's being involved. And it's nice for me to have a little bit of gauge as to what I'm walking into sometimes, and not going into some situations blind. A lot of the people that we see under adult protective services and even under Title 20 do not have the most glamorous homes. That doesn't mean everybody falls in that category, but a lot of people we see are just not, they don't have the best resources going for them. And what important to note here are contracted agencies holding Title 20 dollars. They must put APS referrals from elderly and adult services to the top for in-home care, and they will pay $0 for as long as APS is involved for services. So, and then even after APS may close their case, they may close them with a stipulation that they don't have to pay moving forward. If that keeps a homemaker in their home for the long haul, they will continue to leave them open without regard to income, and we will still serve them without regard to income. And we have many that fall into that category as well. So I just have some case studies just in my particular area that I've chosen to talk about, one Title 20 protection and one regular Title 20 referral, and then a 3B referral. So in this Title 20 protection one, this 67-year-old woman was living alone in her apartment. She lived with her husband who had been admitted to a nursing home, and he had done everything for that entire household. She didn't live in the most glamorous part of Rochester. She lived above a pawn shop, and she had very limited mobility up and down the steep stairs. The husband did everything from grocery shopping, cleaning, bill paying, everything. I believe what happened is he had taken a heart attack, went to the hospital, and then went into a nursing home. They had no children or extended family to speak of. She had no income, no history of using a PCP or any medical history. She came into us as a protective referral. She had no food, like I said, very limited mobility to get up and down the stairs of her apartment to get anything. We worked very closely with the APS worker to access a key from the pawn shop to get into her apartment. She was set up with a homemaker 2 days a week to do the grocery shopping and house cleaning. The homemaker we established for her she was a little bit older and shared some common interests with her. And the homemaker brought her some books from our lending library here, and just shared some common interests with her that really kind of helped her in the absence of having her husband who had been around all the time. With some collaboration with APS, we were able to get her a PCP. She then was applied for and approved for CFI and eventually placed into the assisted living or nursing home that her husband went in. So this is a very nice success story. When it came in, it wasn't so much of a great situation for her, this elderly woman living in her apartment alone without the person who had been with her for most of her life, with really no resources at all. It's very, very startling. And to be able to go in, get this referral and help her kind of move to success was great. Not all of these cases end up in this much of a success, but it's just kind of a glimpse as to what a referral might look like coming in from protection, and with all hands on deck, what happens to the person. Just a regular Title 20 client case. We have a client lives with her husband. Her income qualified her for Title 20. He was over income. This was a case where I think he had very sufficient income and she didn't. But we were able to at least get in there and help her. And with that, we may not be necessarily helping the husband at all, but we we're taking out trash, which was may have been both of theirs. We're, you know, helping around the house. We're not necessarily doing the direct service for the husband, but kind of for the household. She was getting 4 hours a week, 2 days, 2 hours each. She was using the homemaker for errands, med pickup, trash removal, floor cleaning. And with our connection, she got connected to a IBIS hub for her medication and insulin management, which would reduce the amount of hospital admissions for her based on being able to track her blood sugar levels and when she was administering her insulin. And we helped her get an application to CFI. She was approved for that, and now she gets CFI actually she got an increase under CFI to 8 hours a week, and she now has a case manager and some other supports in the home. And she was able to get a new apartment from getting evicted in her other place. But she is someone who probably will, you know, remain getting services for a very long time, and really needs the services to kind of get by and really succeed independently. The last case, our 3B1, and we have a 91-year-old client, was found on our kitchen floor by her neighbor. She'd been there for 4 days, out of reach of a phone or anyone checking in. She was eventually found by her neighbor, brought to the hospital, treated and discharged, and was referred to homemaking once a week for someone as a check-in to help with laundry and anything else the client needed around the house. She was on a very fixed income, and on intake disclosed she was unable to pay for services. So we determined with her financial hardship and her being over 60, she would get services at no fee. To my knowledge, the client has not had a readmission to the hospital since having a consistent homemaker in there. And she is someone who is very grateful for our services, and tells us whenever we're able to talk to her that she's very grateful for having that support system in the place at least once a week for her. And I did select some pretty nice stories for our cases here, but a lot of our people, it's not so glamorous. And we have had some people who get referred to us under protection. We might see them for a couple of weeks, and then eventually they go quickly into either the hospital or assisted living, and they were almost caught too late. So, and not every place we go into, we're kind of putting a Band-Aid on a lot of what's going on. We're not exactly, you know, bringing someone completely out of the mess they're living in, but at least we're helping a little bit, I guess. So the last slide I have is the contacts for Rockingham County, the website, the phone number, where they're located. And for Stratford County, it is the Easter Seals Homemakers and Health Services here in Rochester. And you can call for a referral, email, whatever is easier for you. And I think in Rockingham County, you can call to make a referral there too. Oh, and the other thing, we in this county tend to have leftover units or hours that we need to disperse and use. Rockingham County tends to use their hours and kind of have a wait list for their Title 20 folks. We here do not have a wait list. We are in need of staff in order to continue to use all the units that were allotted, which are quite a bit. So we hope that pretty soon we'll get some more staff coming in and be able to use more of the units we have, because it's an awful lot of money that we do get, and we'd like to be able to start using all of it to be able to, you know, increase capacity in years to come for the amount of people that do need the services in this county. So, and that is the end. Do you have anything else? Does anyone have any questions?
Brandi, I have a couple questions. What's the coverage area? So you mentioned Stratford and Rockingham County. Is this like a statewide program or a nationwide program, or can you explain that a little more?
Yep. I'm not sure nationwide exactly. I know in the state, each agency that goes for bid for the contracted dollars gets some of the money. It's not necessarily by county. In this area, it does happen to be separated by Stratford and Rockingham. But up in the northern area, sometimes there are agencies that share different parts of the county because they're so widespread. So it is a statewide program, and I'm not sure about the nationwide and how federal money is distributed that way to each state and how they use it. There must be some sort of program, but I'm not sure. But in the state, they are relatively separated closely by county, but because we're sometimes so far dispersed, there might be two agencies that share one county. So we do have some people that we serve in, I think, Carroll County, because we had a staff person that was able to support that. So if there is staff in different catchment areas that can support, we can use our Title 20 money to support that area if we're able to.
Brandi, along those lines, so because parts of Maine are just right over the border, do you ever get calls from people like in York County, like in Berwick or North Berwick, and where would you refer those people if that's a different state?
Yeah, we do actually get a lot of calls for Maine, and we don't serve Maine just because our license doesn't permit that. We Maine Council on Aging, but in terms of, I don't get a lot of calls about any sort of like low income or in-home care for low income. I mostly just get referrals for just strictly in-home care, and we don't serve Maine.
Brandi, just to clarify other eligibility, you talked about the financial eligibility. When you mentioned one of your clients who kind of came off the program because they went into an assisted living facility, does that disqualify someone moving into a home or a nursing home? Does that disqualify them from services?
It does, and unless they want to pay privately after that. But yeah, they can't get a Title 20 or Medicaid through using in-home care.
Okay, so it's specific for in-home care.
Yep, but we do have a couple people who are in like Maple Suites in Dover who get services, because that's an independent. So places like that, yes, but not like a regular nursing home or assisted living facility.
Okay.
Brandi, how do the workers get paid? I mean, obviously you have a grant fund, is that what it is? So the grants pay for all of the employees, whether they're somebody like yourself or Tracy, or somebody that's actually going out and helping these seniors with errands and that sort of thing?
So that Title 20 grant that we receive, we submit the reimbursement every timesheet we get for all the hours worked. We receive reimbursement for that, and that's how we're able to support our department financially. That does not pay for our care coordinators or anything like that. That pays us to administer the grant out of this county.
Hey, Brandi.
Yeah.
Oh, Brandi, I'm sorry. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm curious about the day out program. Obviously, I know that it's not fully in effect right now with COVID-19, but where is it?
I sort of lost the last half of what you said.
Okay.
I
Sorry.
heard you ask where we were located. So we have day out in Rochester at the Homemakers and Health Services office, which is 215 Rochester Hill Road.
Mhm.
And we have our adult day program in Manchester, which is at 555 Auburn Street. And currently, neither one of them have patients or have people coming in the building, but they're doing some telehealth with those people right now.
Okay. Thank you.
So Brandi, are most of these services though provided as a temporary basis until they get onto CFI? Because like CFI provides, you know, adult daycare, all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, in theory, you would like it to be, but we've had people on Title 20 for 10, 15 years who
30.
they choose that they may have some money that they don't want to let go of or an asset.
Right.
A lot of people do go on to CFI, but a lot of people do not, and they stay on this program for as long as they can.
Really? Right. So as long as their income is below that threshold, which is a pretty low income.
It is, yep. And they can stay on it for as long as they want. I mean, we don't mind that because
Right.
we get reimbursed more for those hours from Title 20 than Medicaid. So, I mean, yes, with Medicaid, CFI comes along your case manager and some other supports that could really be of value to somebody.
Mhm.
But if we're not going to beg them to go on to CFI if they're on Title 20 for a long period of time.
Right. Right.
We'll provide them the resources if they're asking and assist them, but we're not going to beg someone to go move over to CFI.
And so if they were to do adult care, it would still just be $1 an hour?
No, those guidelines are a little different. I think the only thing they really have to pay for is the transportation to and from, which is $12.50. And then Elaine would know more about what their rate was, but I don't think they really have a day out rate for Title 20. It's very, very minimal, whatever it is. But in this region, we have very limited units to support adult day under Title 20.
Gotcha. Okay. It's good to know. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else?
Do you guys help with the actual CFI application when you're in there and they're transitioning, or do you mostly collaborate with ServiceLink to have that part done?
Yep, we'll refer them to ServiceLink.
And how about REAP? Do you refer out to REAP much in terms of additional mental health support or advanced directives?
Not really. Probably something we should do more, but we haven't used that as much.
Do you ask that question if they have their advanced directives when you're in their home, or do you just stick to mostly the homemaking piece?
We were at the very beginning of all of this, but I don't think we're using it as a practice. Yeah. Sometimes people really don't understand what we're asking them, and to educate them on it is something that would obviously benefit them. But a lot of times they don't really know even what that would mean when we ask it.
Yeah. Well, we'll just leave that over in Anna's court. Does anybody have any other questions? Brandi did a nice job putting together some case studies, so that was kind of our case portion. So we really do have another hour to continue on this topic, or just general conversation on this topic. I mean, for me, it's not surprising, I guess, considering how long we've been talking about this, but it's really crazy that you have funding available, but not bodies to fill the need. It's just, that's the hardest part.
I
You're on
think
mute.
it's great that you are telling us all about it, because that's half the battle, right? Like, unless you were explaining it to us this morning, a lot of us wouldn't even know what you do. I've known you for years, Brandi. I never knew all this good information, so thank you.
There's lots of onion layers to this, to our program over here. So right now, with the number of dollars we have left, just to put it in perspective, we could fill 15 full-time positions and fill all of those hours with Title 20 money. So that's how much money we have, how much we're in need of staff. And we have full-time positions posted. We have per diem positions posted. Throughout this COVID-19 issue, we have had some of our own agencies, workers transfer over to our department if their job was eliminated, which has been helpful, but it hasn't given us what we need. And this has been ongoing. I mean, you've probably heard this as long as you've been in this business, that staffing is just always the issue in our industry. And part of it is our Medicaid reimbursement is pathetic, and it's not suitable for what we're doing and what, you know, we can't pay staff much more if we're not getting even reimbursed what is a suitable rate. It's kind of ridiculous.
So, so I should have made an announcement. Maybe I could send it to an email, something like that. So two things that have come out from the COVID at the Department of Health and Human Services, and they have two notices on this. One is for people who are applying for CFI and Medicare for nursing home care when they're applying and they can't get all the documentation right because they limitations about what they can get out or get to the banks and stuff like that. So there's there's a temporary relax on that piece. So you can still apply even though you don't have all the documentation. But the other thing that they came out with too, though, is that you can now pay family members for CFI at home as long as they're working through an agency.
So we've always been able to hire family members.
Oh, because that
they just can't be the POA, but they've waived that.
Okay.
That's what's been waived. So we have a lot of people under CFI that are family only, and we have a lot of people too under Title 20 that do family, and
So that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
So they can, as long as they go through your agency, though, right? When they get.
Yep.
So they're then deemed to be your employee then when they do that,
Yep.
or how does that work?
Yeah, but they're pretty, I mean, they're kind of left alone just because they're working for their family. They're not really out going home to home. So they tend to be lower needs families, lower needs workers.
Right.
But we would definitely support Title 20 people, family members that are supporting their family and not getting CFI yet. We would support hiring them as family, and we'll pay them to work 29 hours a week. And that helps us get through some units, also helps us to, I just saw CFI stands for Choices for Independence. So yeah, we'll support whoever needs to come in and work and get services. That's an easy peasy case for us to do. The family ones are very easy.
How long does that take to get set up, to get the family member as an employee, so to speak? Is that fast?
It's very quick. Well, Easter Seals tends to be a little bit slower in their hiring, but we've been doing a lot of Zoom and virtual orientations, which have sped up our process. So I would say 2 weeks to get a family member on, and then we need to go out and do the intake with the family. But yeah, we've got 2-week turnarounds. The thing that slows a hiring process up for someone is if they don't have a reference or their references aren't getting back. But we're trying to move quickly to get people on board as quick as we can.
Joy, did I interrupt you? Did you have another question?
Oh, no, I just think, I think I have a client. I just don't know what her income is. I don't know if that's going to be an issue.
But she might qualify for 3B then, right?
If she's over income, she could qualify for 3B.
Okay.
So do you ever have issues with them not having internet right now to do this?
For staff?
Or access to a computer?
I like a new hire, you mean?
Oh yeah, like if there was a family that could benefit from these services, but they don't have internet, like they're homeless.
Not really. But we also have our offices that people could come into too if that was an issue. Like we have an area where staff have 2 computers they have access to. So if someone wanted to come in and even apply or needed to do their orientation, we have public computers that they could use. Well, they're not open to the public, but they're open to anyone who's a staff person or wanting to become a staff person. And our office, as long as you come in and answer the questions we ask about COVID and you wear a mask, people can come into our office.
My last question is, do you have limitations on folks with dementia, if there is behaviors or if there's mental health in the home, like drinking or anything like that?
Well, if it's dementia or Alzheimer's related, we'll make a referral over to internally into our program here, the Living Well with Dementia group, and try to get them involved. So in terms of mental health issues, I mean, I hate to say it this so frankly, but it seems to be the norm almost with every person we work with. So when we send a worker out, a lot of our homemakers who have been here for years, they've seen it all. And so it's not as risky to send our workers into these people's homes that have dual diagnoses with mental health. With the dementia and Alzheimer's piece, we try to collaborate very quickly internally with either the Deb Drone, who is a care coordinator as well, who can assist getting people to appointments and going in and helping families, supporting them. So we try to make a dual referral. I don't know if that really answered your question, Kelly.
No, it does. And then what if somebody's like a one-person assist or transfer?
Well, with Title 20, we're really hands-off. We really can't touch. We're not supposed to be touching at all. It's really strictly homemaking. So if that's the case, then if they are needing more support, we'll try to bring someone else maybe in if we can. Or we'll talk to the family about just maybe really getting a rapid application to CFI so they can, most of the people who come through are not people who are needing assists or transfers under Title 20.
Can you pay let's say, so in my situation, the family member, she probably needs all of that, but could you just pay for the homemaking service until their CFI gets set up?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm thinking. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
And then could you work with like your organization and a private duty home care to kind of meet all the needs? Yeah.
Yep.
I need to utilize you more. I think so. Okay. So Joy, isn't there families now, if they've been living in the home and caregiving for like 2 years, isn't there something in the Medicaid laws now where they can get that home?
Well, so that's always been there, but let me just tell you how it works though. You have to, it's called a caretaker child exception. You have to have been providing services for 2 years to enable a person not to go to a nursing home. So just because, you know what I mean? Like it's usually they're just doing a little bit of help at first, you know what I mean? And the person doesn't need nursing home care. The person needs to qualify for nursing home care. And then once they've qualified for that, they need assistance with 2 things of daily living, right? And you want your doctor to sign off on that. Then that starts the 2-year running, right? And so if the person's had no advice or counsel, and it ends up that the parent then goes into the nursing home, then you could transfer the house, and that makes sense. Same thing for siblings too. If siblings co-own the property together, I'm not sure if you could transfer it to the sibling if they didn't own it. But here's the problem of what happens though. A lot of times, once the parents got to that point where they need assistance with 2 things of daily living and could qualify for nursing home care, and especially if it's dementia is involved, they'll get almost to the end of the 2 years and not quite make it. Something happens, they slip and fall, they go to the hospital, and they can't then go back home and get those 2 more years running. So I don't use it as a planning technique. I really tell them to use the personal care contract, because then you absolutely know you're going to get paid. Now you have to pay taxes on it and stuff like that. But I've had it so many times where the person has gotten almost to the very end, 22 months, 20 months. And then they go in, it's not safe to be at home. They've got dementia, they're up 24/7 at night. And then they don't qualify. So it's really not necessarily a good tool, because you can't guarantee that after they do all of that, they're going to meet the 2-year rule.
So how does that care contract work with the being paid by Easter Seals? How do those work together?
So it would depend. So if they go through an agency, then the agency does it, and they don't need a personal care contract. But you don't have to go through an agency to do it. So an agency, like if they're getting CFI, right? CFI is paying them. Personal care contract is when the parent is paying them, right? So the parent has so much money, isn't going to qualify for CFI, isn't going into a nursing home, and they want to pay a child who is not working and is taking care of them, right? Or is working, but maybe not working full time. So I have a situation right now where the daughter lives in the home with the mother, is taking care of the mother. The mother has some means, won't qualify for CFI, doesn't want to go to an assisted living facility or independent. So mom is paying daughter to take care of her, and daughter's not working as much as she could work. So, right, so the personal care contract usually works where the parent is paying for the services, not through CFI.
Interesting. It's a lot of logistics, because you think about like families, their goals are to stay home, typically. But there's also this underlying, like, I don't want to say ulterior motive, because I don't mean it in a negative way, but like families then feel owed, right? Either in the form of payment or the house. It seems, there's this always overlap, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But how do we then help them meet their goals and keep their loved ones safe? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, that there's definitely can be a disconnect on that part, right? Where the child's keeping the parent home so they can get paid, and it's not safe. That's kind of the situation that I think I have Brandi help.
yeah.
But they can't get the mom into a facility right now because of the COVID. But the other problem though too we have is where the child does stay. This happens a lot. Child lives with the parent for forever, right? Never failure to launch, lives with the whole time. Parent supports the child all those years. The kid doesn't pay rent, right? And then when they get older, it's all of a sudden, well, now the child needs to help take care of the parent. And the child's like, well, I deserve to be paid. And the other siblings are like so angry, right? And then they help for 1 year and they should be able to get a house worth $500,000. Like they'll convince the parent to change their estate plan and give them everything. So what I do when I counsel my clients, parents or the siblings, I say, look, what kind of a relationship do you want to have with your siblings after the fact? Or what kind of relationship do you want your kids to have? So you need to treat them fairly. So I say pay. You know what I mean? Pay the child that's taking care of you, because otherwise it just sets up for this inequality, and then the relationships are just shot afterwards. So it doesn't always work, but that's what I try to counsel them.
Anna, what have you seen when you've referred out for 3B in Title 20?
So I mean, it's a great program, and probably about a year ago it changed that anybody under 1277 could pay $1 an hour, right, Brandi? It was probably about a year ago.
Yep.
So that's like incredible. I think the problem is that when people are over the 1277 and they have like $2,100 and they have to pay, and then they don't want to pay anything. Because that's a lot and it's kind of minimal. So the 3B, I think it's kind of tricky because I don't know, maybe you could speak to that, Brandi, about that kind of catch area that, you know, they could be eligible, but they don't want to pay more money. Or they utilize, you know, use that money for other things, even though it's a significant amount of money and they're in their own home.
So we have a budget sheet that we have used with people. Just we start by looking at how much total income is there, and then we go through their expenses. And if their expenses outweigh their income, then that's when we can look at the hardship. I mean, if you're talking like someone has $2,500 a month coming in and they just don't want to pay for services, that's not really someone who would qualify for 3B. But if we would, you know, take a look at their financial statement and they're say 1,700, and they've got, you know, mortgage, their backlog with this bill and that bill, that's when we really will take a look. But we go through that budget sheet with them and really look at their income versus expenses.
And I think it's, I mean, it's a life-saving program for so many people to keep them in their home. And it's just enough, you know. And like Brandi said, a lot of people don't even need the CFI for a while.
Yeah.
But that, I guess that's like that tricky part is that people who have a little bit more and they don't want to spend that money. So, and that's a choice too that people are making as well. And if only they could see the benefit of it, I guess, is part of it. And as a home health social worker, you're only going in once, maybe twice. So it's not like, you know, you can counsel on, but, you know, you can refer to REAP and, you know, other programs that are going in to try to help with that process. But it's a fantastic, fantastic program. And certainly geographically, I think, you know, Brandi pointed it out, it's easier in Rochester. Brandi's very responsive to people, goes right out, and Rockingham's much more difficult because people are making a lot less money in Portsmouth for the cost of living. So that's tough depending on where you live as well. And your question kind of about the, you know, a family member being paid, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to have that contract and be reimbursed kind of a smaller amount. You'd rather just almost go to a private agency or just privately pay that family member the $32 versus getting paid the $12 an hour that they might through Easter Seals. So you're going to use that money faster. You know, I mean, you're going to get more and maybe qualify for CFI if that's, depending on what the goal is, but nonetheless, the family's going to get more reimbursed if they just privately do it versus going through Title 20 program. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think for my clients, when they use the personal care contract, is they don't qualify. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Their
Yeah.
income and their assets are over it.
Oh.
The interesting thing's going to happen, I wonder, with Title 20 and 3B. With the CFI, we've requested the waiver. It is a waiver program, but we've requested that to only look at the spouse's income and assets. But for a short period of time, for 3 months back in the beginning of 2020, they had shifted it and applied the Medicaid rules for nursing home care. So you looked at both income and both assets. So I'm curious to see if we're going to have to go back to that rule. It's a federal rule and we're allowed to go out of it for a short period of time. So if that were to come back in and become effective, then I'm wondering if Title 20 and 3B might look more attractive to people that won't qualify for CFI.
The other thing I was going to mention, speaking of spouses, or if you know, you have older sisters who are living together or something, you might go into the home and you're evaluating one person and they're over income like 1,500, but then the other person who probably would qualify still is only making $400 a month, you know, through their Social Security. So you're always looking at everybody in the house too, because you're not necessarily just evaluating the person that you're there to specifically see. And I feel like I actually get a lot of people like that when I ask the question of both spouses' income. So that's really helpful.
And that's kind of how we can skirt around helping both. By qualifying one, we're really supposed to only do the work for that one, but it really helps out both household members.
Right, right, right. My case that I want to refer to you, it's a little tricky though, because other people live in the home and don't necessarily pay rent. So I don't know how that all works.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're used to a lot of weird dynamics, I guess. So
Yeah,
bring
and
it on.
you just apply and then you can see.
Yeah.
So you can get away with that with the Title 20 or the 3B more so than CFI, because CFI has the clinical piece that's more tied to the individual, whereas this is more homemaking, so it can be in the household. Is that?
Yep.
And the other thing is the process of, you know, referring to Title 20 versus applying for CFI is like night and day.
Oh.
It's literally like a phone call or a fax, like that has just their name, their address, their age. That's it. Like, and then Brandy's out within the week, and it's quick. You know,
And our application
CFI
is
takes
literally just an application they need to sign when I do the intake.
right.
And that's good for a year.
So,
Yeah.
And if it's a family member, they could get up to 8 hours a week,
They can get up to 29 hours a week.
but only homemaking services, no medical or anything like that, no
Only
training,
No
homemaking.
hands-on.
Yep.
no hands-on.
Right.
Does transportation and doctor's appointments fall in that or no? Yeah.
No, we cannot transport.
So what would somebody do for 29 hours a week?
If
If they're
they're
just
a family
homemaking.
member, I mean,
Have you seen some of the houses?
family members will, I mean, we know they're probably doing some hands-on, even though they're technically not supposed to under Title 20, but we have, in one case, we have a family, a wife takes care of her husband who is disabled. He, years ago, dived into his pool and got a neck spinal injury, and he is paralyzed from the waist down. And she assists him under Title 20. There's some interesting ways they're getting around not applying for CFI, which we're not really trying to investigate much, but that's a case where she probably is doing hands-on, but she's doing all the meal prep, she's doing all the housekeeping, she's doing the laundry, she's doing everything. And so she really is doing probably even more than that, 29 hours a week. She's probably doing 40, maybe 80. I mean, but you know, and I mean, if it's someone, we're doing the intake and we're seeing the house. Some of the houses we're seeing, you know, there might be a lot to upkeep. There might be a lot going on family dynamic wise. So,
Okay.
And I would say probably most people, and you could speak to this, Brandy, but most people probably get between 4 and 12 hours is a pretty average weekly amount.
yeah, I'd say we're not doing as many 12-hour people, where we'd like to do more hours per person than we're doing. We're doing a lot of 2 to 4 hour a week ones, to be honest with you right now, because I'm trying to get everyone who comes in staffed. And so if I have a person who owns, like a worker who literally has 2 hours open in their schedule, they're going to someone's house. So we play a game every week of who's available, what, who needs services, and what staff is available to support that. It would, in a perfect world, it would be wonderful to give every client 5 to 10 hours a week. But the reality is I'm trying to give everybody something, but it's really, I'm not giving everybody enough. I'm giving my workers the hours, but I'm not giving the clients enough because I don't have enough workers to spread that well. So I play a game every week of, okay, who is available, what are we doing, who needs what. And we get people who take a fall, they go into rehab, then I get a staff available, so they go to someone else, then that other person comes home. So it's really playing a game of the match game every week.
What about caring for the pets?
Well, we don't change litter boxes, although I'm sure most of our staff do. But
Don't change litter boxes.
we will help take care of their pets. Yeah.
Do you walk their dog for them if they can't?
We do.
Okay.
Our workers do way more than what we know, and we know that. But we're just grateful for what they are doing. And we do have to have some conversations about boundaries and about, because with someone who's been on Title 20 or been on the program for a long time and have the same worker, they do become very close. And we have had some major catastrophes happen because the boundaries get crossed, and we need to do some real referee playing sometimes. But that's part of it.
Brandi, can you speak to, with the COVID-19, how your workers have changed the behaviors that they are having going into houses?
Sure. So everyone wears a mask, has access to a mask, has access to antibacterial and agency scrubs. Every staff person at Easter Seals checks their temperature and answers a series of questions before every shift. The questions include have you had any of the following symptoms that are related to COVID? Have you been in contact directly with anyone who has had COVID? Have you been in a group of more than 10 and not socially distanced properly? Have you traveled out of the state? So every morning, every person who works has to log in, answer those questions. If they say yes to any of those questions, they immediately get a flag to our occupational health department, who calls them and intervenes and involves their supervisor as to what is going on and what the next steps are. So recently I've had, I should say, throughout the state, our department has had one person test positive for COVID. They were at a nursing home and left at their own will from that nursing home. So that person is the only positive client case we've had, and we've, to my knowledge, had no confirmed positive tests for any of our staff, although we have had many tests. So recently we just had one person test. She had symptoms, she tested negative, but our occupational health department is still choosing to keep her on a quarantine in the case that it was a false negative. So our occupational health department is taking things extremely serious. So we're trying to keep everybody safe by involving them in anything related to that questionnaire they take every day and their temperature checking they take every day. And we've also supplied thermometers to all of our staff that we can who don't have a thermometer. So we're trying to just do everything we can to keep everybody as safe as possible.